Let's talk about different levels of cold. When it's 32 degrees Fahrenheit, that's how cold you need to get to freeze water. To turn water into ice, you need to be at 32 degrees Fahrenheit. You can get even colder than that. You can go all the way down to 0 degrees. And at 0 degrees, the cold can become very dangerous. At 0 degrees, if you're outside for half an hour, you can get frostbite where there's soft tissue damage to your skin. That can be very, very dangerous. You can get even colder. Let's take a look and see what negative 15 degrees. So 32 degrees is cold, 0 degrees is colder. Negative 15 degrees, that's even colder. That's 15 degrees colder than 0. Let's take a look and see what happens at that temperature. So here's what happens at negative 15 degrees. You see that he threw the boiling water in the air and it froze in midair at negative 15 degrees. That's even colder than 0. And you'll see there the water freezes in midair. But we can get even colder than that. We can go all the way to negative 60 degrees. Negative 60 degrees, that's the average temperature you're going to see in Antarctica. That's where it's going to get that cold. And at negative 82 degrees, if you spit, the spit will freeze before it hits the ground. So if you spit, it'll turn to ice, hit the ground, and shatter. That's negative 82 degrees. But we can get colder. At negative 297 degrees, it's even colder. Now it's like insanely cold. The oxygen in the air, becomes a liquid. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. Here's the liquid oxygen. Now here's something cool about liquid oxygen is it's actually attracted to a magnet. And you can see over here, this liquid oxygen, that's literally oxygen that's so cold it's turned into a liquid, is actually attracted to this magnet over here. Now, we can get even colder at negative 320 degrees. That's where you can create liquid nitrogen. And let's see what happens with liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen, you can take these rubber balls, these rubber toys, and you'll see that now they're so frozen solid that they shatter when you drop them. It just breaks apart, even though they're just rubber. That's liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen is also used for medical purposes. It's super cool. You can freeze basically anything and shatter it with liquid nitrogen, but you can get even colder. So now remember, at negative 297, that's where you get liquid oxygen. At negative 320 degrees, negative 320 degrees, you get liquid nitrogen. Nitrogen, by the way, is the other thing in the air. And the air you breathe is mostly oxygen and nitrogen. Mostly nitrogen, and the other second biggest thing is, the second most prevalent thing is oxygen. But you can get even colder than that. At negative 362 degrees, the oxygen is no longer a liquid. It becomes a solid. And at negative 460 degrees, that is the coldest temperature possible. Everything becomes a solid. Air becomes totally solid at that temperature. We call that absolute zero. And at absolute zero, you have these ultra cold atoms that are barely moving at all. So as you see, you can get colder and colder and colder, and crazy things happen at these different cold temperatures. It can be helpful to think about these cold temperatures when you're thinking about negative numbers.